Hello and well met. This is Lavern with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Pathfinder 2 beginner box again. This time we're going to take a look at the solo adventure. Early Happy New Year. It is December 31st in the afternoon Pacific time, so some of you have already celebrated or you will be celebrating tonight, so I wanted to give you guys a shout out for that. And going back to Fantasy Grounds, I wanted to mention that this is the Pathfinder 2nd edition rule set. It is not the remastered. This is just the old setup here, so nothing fancy. I don't have any extensions, nothing added. It's strictly vanilla. And pretty much I have just the box set loaded here. So the beginner box has a starting point, Game Master's Guide, a Hero's Handbook, which kind of gives you some basics for characters, and then the Pirates Plunder solo adventure, which we're going to be looking at now. And then you also get some pre-made characters. So before we get into the solo adventure, just want to let you know, if you plan on running Pathfinder and you've never done it before, and Fantasy Grounds, this would be a good start to kind of get used to where things are at, and also to kind of get used to the terminology, the way the dice work, that sort of thing. So this really is for a beginner. If you're somebody who's used to Fantasy Grounds and you've been playing for a while, it might be a little disappointing in the fact that the Pirate King's Plunder is not automated. It's strictly text and pictures, so it's not really set up to be fully automated. So you could use regular dice at your desk, or, just use the narrative that they're giving you. Just follow the text. You don't have to worry about, dice rolls in Fantasy Grounds. Matter of fact, if it asks for dice, you just pick it up and drop it in the chat window. You don't need to go through the character sheet and all that. I just have one up here for reference. This is going to assume that you're using a first level fighter. Valeros comes with the box set as a pre-gen character, so I just kind of have that up here for reference. But ideally, you want to follow the text for the solo adventure. It's more narrative. It's more like kind of explaining as you go. It's not very long. We're going to go through that. And I'm not going to worry about like the tables and the character sheets and the NPC stat blocks, all that stuff. There is a beginner adventure in here for 4 players and a GM. That's when you have to start worrying about that sort of thing. This is more or less to get you used to the idea of playing on a tabletop. And the only difference is that this has digital assets, whereas if you're playing around the table, you'd have books and physical dice and maybe some minis. So this is just kind of for that purpose. And if you want to do this and not have any spoilers, I'll just tell you down the spoiler alert. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a summary, and then we'll get into it. So the Pirate King's Plunder is a solo adventure. It's found in the beginner box Hero's Handbook. It's basically a text-based adventure where the player makes choices that determine the next section of the adventure that they will read. So it's kind of like the Choose Your Own Adventure style books, if you remember those. The goal of the adventure is to teach new players how to play Pathfinder. It's accomplished by guiding the player through a short adventure, teaching them basic rules as they are needed, such as how to use skills, spells, and items. The player is tasked, as you get into the adventure, basically you're tasked by Tamily Tanderveil to hunt down a vicious wolf that has been attacking people on the outskirts of the town of Otari, which is where basically the starting town is. Think of it as if you played 5e D&D, you would know it'd be kind of similar to Phandelver. So not necessarily the town, but the idea, the concept of having a starting point. The player's given the option of taking a pre-generated character or creating their own. I'm just going to use a pre-gen. But you could create your own, and I'm not going to go into character building, so we'll just use Valeros here. But basically, after a few encounters with a wolf, the players stumble upon a hidden cave. Inside the cave, you may encounter a pirate statue that attacks anyone who tries to take the treasure it's guarding. A locked chest that needs to be opened with a key found earlier, and a secret passage that leads back to the town. At the end of the adventure, the player receives a reward and is given the option of trying the adventure again or moving on to creating their own character. So it's a really good, really basic starting point. And like I said, it's not automated, although you could add your own. So I put a note down here. It says the solo adventure is not automated for Fantasy Grounds. However, it would be a great project for a new user to implement the adventure in Fantasy Grounds as a way to learn the program and to create semi-custom content with the existing materials. So you could go through and add the stat blocks and the encounters and stuff, and that would give you a really good overview and a really good tutorial on how to do this stuff without the pressure of running game. So I think that's a really good idea. I didn't realize that it wasn't automated. I was going through it initially and I was like, oh, okay. So it's all text. You don't do anything except for pick up some dice and compare numbers. And it's just like playing around a table at this point. There's no need to worry about all the automation and the extensions and effects and all that stuff. It just basically gives you a really raw basic breakdown. So the conversion notes say that Fantasy Grounds module contains the Pirate King's Plunder solo tutorial adventure from the Beginner's Box Hero's Handbook. It can be used standalone as a short adventure or as an aid to learn the basics of Pathfinder 2nd Edition and Fantasy Grounds. So I don't know if it so much teaches Fantasy Grounds, but I think it gets you used to the idea of using Fantasy Grounds as your library and such. So that's kind of the real base of Fantasy Grounds anyways. So without all the fancy automation and line of sight and all that sort of thing, all in all, it is a database that holds your book. So you have a library at your fingertips. If you have a decent laptop, you can bring it with you. It's instead of hauling around a duffel bag full of books. So it's kind of a nice way. So it says to start the adventure, you open the reference manual from the library entry for this product. So this has changed a little bit. So what's happened here is that Fantasy Grounds is updated a little. So you would go to books, and that would be in here, and that's basically what this window is basically the reference manual now referred to as books. So we're going to go to how to play, which here's the table of contents. You can use these arrows to navigate. So what I'm going to do, instead of having all these entries here, because you're not going to go in order, it depends on what you pick as your options. So like I said, it's like choose your own adventure style. So I'm going to collapse this and only show this page because I just need one page at a time. I don't need to know everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and click, and it's just going to show you how to play Fantasy Grounds really basically, and kind of like basic usage notes for this type of thing. So what's nice about this is you can pop the images out and share these with your players if you were going to run this for one person or something. But all in all, you're just going to read through the text, and then you're going to follow the links at the bottom. So it's not really 1, 2, 3, 4. It's based off of your choices. So I'm going to narrate some of this. If you get bored, I apologize, but this is kind of the way that a newer user to role-playing games and to Fantasy Grounds would get started. So we're going to start here, and then what I think I'll do is get into character creation in my next video, and then we'll get into inviting a couple people to play through the actual 4-person adventure. So there's 2 adventures. A solo one that's not automated, just all text. That's this one. And then there's one that has maps and tokens and all that other stuff. So this is starts off in the coastal town of Otari, south of Absalom. So it says you're a wandering adventurer visiting Otari. In this case, you're a fighter. A small town on the coast of the Starstone Isle, an enormous island magically raised out of the ocean by an ancient god. Otari is renowned for its lumber and fine wooden boats, but that's not what brought you here. You came looking for adventure. So this is the start. Word has it that a vicious beast is preying upon the town's livestock, and the mayor has offered 10 gold coins to any hero who can put an end to the menace. That kind of money would pay for your expenses for an entire month. So, your incentive here is money, adventure, and of course, out of game, you're kind of looking to check out the Pathfinder setting, You know, you get to look at some of the art. You get to check out Fantasy Grounds, you know, that sort of thing. And you notice I kind of have this all laid out so it's easier to read, and I can, you know, see basically what's happening. And I don't have windows stacked on top of each other, that sort of thing. So the word has it that the beast is preying upon, let's say we already read that. So after asking around at a nearby tavern called the Crow's Casks, you learn that most of the attacks occur on the west side of town, not far from shore. That seems like the best place to start your search. So you gather your belongings and make your way out along the rocky beach to begin your hunt. It doesn't take long for you to find the entrance to a dark and mysterious cave. Large paw prints lead to and from the gloomy opening. So all this is narrative. You have to kind of imagine the stuff. There isn't always going to be pictures and maps and stuff. So if you play a lot of theater of the mind, you know, kind of think of it more like that. So now it says go to entry number 13. So we'll click that. And now it says, noticing the tracks leading to the cave, you hide in the nearby underbrush, hoping to ambush whatever foul beast lives here. After just a few moments, you hear the sounds of something approaching, and the scent of wet fur hangs heavy in the air. So here's a picture of the icy cave. Emerging from the bushes, a lean, mangy wolf carrying a body of dead chicken in its maws. It appears to be returning home after its most recent hunt. Clearly, this is the beast that's been preying upon the farmer's animals. You wait until it's near, then draw your short sword and spring out to attack. So it's assuming you have a fighter, or, you know, you could use whatever you want, but the beginning tells you to use a pregen or make your own first level fighter. So now it breaks it down here, and it says, okay, you're in combat now. So this section here starts explaining to you how combat works. And just keep in mind, this is very rudimentary. So if you are used to Fantasy Grounds, or you've been playing role-playing games for a while, a lot of this might be boring. But if you're brand new to everything, you know, this would be helpful. It says you are now in combat with a wolf. You know that this feral beast cannot be tamed and must be slain to keep the farmer's livestock safe. Both you and the wolf take turns attacking one another. You attack by rolling a 20-sided die, or D20 for short, and adding your attack bonus, which represents your skill at wielding a weapon. If the total is equal to or greater than the wolf's armor class, or AC for short, then the attack is a hit and deals damage. Subtract the damage from the wolf's hit points or HP for short. To defeat the wolf, you must reduce the wolf to 0 or less. On the wolf's turn, it will attack you as well. Roll a d20 for the wolf, add its attack bonus, and compare the result to your AC. If the wolf reduces you to 0 hit points or less, you die. You record both your HP and the wolf's HP on a piece of scratch paper. So in Fantasy Grounds, you don't really have scratch paper. You could do a couple things. You can either type in the notes and keep it that way, or you can start a new image and just draw on it, you know, with the basic pencil. It's kind of up to you. I prefer just to make notes here. So what I'll do is, in my notes for the adventure, I'll just come down here, and this is another good way to record what we did or what happened. So I will just put hit points here. And what I'll do is I'll just record them here. So it says your AC, your hit points, wolf's AC, and the wolf's hit points. That's pretty basic. I mean, you can't get any easier than that. So 18, let's see, so AC. Now, some rule sets let you unlock this. I'd have to make a copy, but let me go ahead and, yeah, it's read only, so I'd have to make a copy of it. So what I'll do is just take some notes here and worry about that. So I'll say AC 18. And you can do this on paper. You don't have to do it in Fantasy Grounds. And then your HP is 20. And then for the wolf, AC is 14. And the HP is 15. So I'll go ahead and clean this up. So this is just the preliminary notes that you might take in any role-playing game, especially if you don't have automation and that sort of thing. So this is really like playing like old school here around a table, but instead we have a digital tool instead of the physical. I think in this case, for this solo adventure, I think I'd rather play around a table, to be honest. But if all you have is Fantasy Grounds, then you have this option to play this way. So this is me, and this is the wolf. So we'll just use this as a reference. And it's taken me a bit because I'm hand entering all this. But honestly, I could just, put it on a piece of scrap paper on my desktop and do it that way. It's probably quicker. So so basically we've done that. Now what we're going to do is see all this, add notes here to subtract the numbers. And you can also do something in the combat tracker if you really wanted to, but I think this is going to show you more really basic raw role-playing stuff. So combat occurs in rounds. In each round, you and the wolf takes turns, and on each turn you can use 3 actions. Once you have used your actions, it's the wolf's turn. After it uses 3 actions, it's your turn again. This repeats until one side is defeated. Actions are denoted by this like arrow symbol. On your turn, you can use the following actions. You can strike with your short sword. You can hide in bushes if you want. So that's basically the main actions you can take. It says for striking, you roll a d20, you add 7. If you use this a second time, only add 2 to the roll, and if you use it a third time, you subtract 3 from the roll instead. Each time, the result needs to be equal to or greater than the wolf's AC. And if it does, then you roll 1d6 plus 4. So you roll a 6-sided and add a 4. So you can cheat a little bit here. So you should write down your AC, the attack bonuses, and your damage rolls on the scrap paper so you can reference them later. On the wolf's turn, it attacks you 3 times using all its actions. So let's do this. Let's say we get the first jump. We want the players to have the advantage. So I have the initiative. I'm going to pick up a die. And here it says you can add 7. So you can either manually do it, or if you use the modifier box down here, you can just type in 7, pick up a 20 die, and roll it. And it'll do the calculation for you. So that rolled a 19, which actually beats the AC of 14. So if that's the case, then you get to roll a 1d6 plus 4 damage. So I'm going to pick up put a 4 here on adjustments, and then I'll pick up a d6, roll it, and there we go. So that's a quick way to add a modifier in Fantasy Grounds, or you could do it on paper if you want. So a lot of people forget about that, and it's very simple. And it comes in handy if you don't have something automated or something surprising comes up and you weren't ready for it. The other nice thing about this is we can take these numbers and record them here. Or you can even drag them over, I believe. So we did 10 points of damage to the wolf, I believe. Yep. So what I'll do is just put -10 here and a comma afterwards. So I get 2 more attacks. So let's see what happens. So the next attack, I only get to add +2 because it's my second action. And I still have to beat the 14. So we'll see what happens here. Wow, I rolled a 1. So that's a 3. So without assuming anything, we'll just say I missed, but it could be a critical failure or something like that. But this doesn't account for that. It doesn't get that deep into the mechanics, so I'm just going to say I missed. But if I was playing around the table and I was experienced enough, I would probably have some consequences. So you know what? As a kind of a way to extend this a little bit more, maybe you would say, okay, you dropped your sword and you have to spend your next action picking it up or something like that. But in this case, I'm going to follow the tutorial. So I get 1 more attack, but this time it's at a negative value, so -3. So in the modifier box, I'm going to type in -3, and I'm going to roll the 20-sided again. Oh, even just as bad. So I missed those last 2 swings there. So I took the short sword and started hacking away at the wolf. The first one connected because I think I caught it off guard or surprised it. The other two was able to kind of maneuver around and get around it. So now it's the wolf's turn. Uh-oh. Okay, so the wolf rolls a 20, he adds a 5 for his first attack. You don't add anything to the second attack, and you subtract 5 from the third. So I'm going to go ahead and add the +5. So just put a 5 in the modifiers, drop this 20-sided die, and there's an 11. So the wolf missed on that attack. So he kind of leapt up and he tried to grab my arm with his teeth, and I was able to yank my arm out of the way. And then he kind of comes snarling around for another bite. This time it's just a straight D20, no modifier. So this time he tries to snap at me again, and I'm able to kind of move my sword in the way to intervene. And now the second attack is a -5. So I'm going to put -5 here, and then I'm going to roll the D20 and see what happens. Oh, again, so yeah, not even close. So he almost fell, kind of lurching or launching himself at me at that time. So you basically resolve this. You just keep going back and forth. So I'll go ahead and do another round of action. So that was round 1. And now the second round, what we're going to do is I'll actually put -0 up here, just so I know how many rounds we went. And let's go again. So I'm going to do the +7 modifier, and then I'm going to roll. But if you wanted to, you could take this modifier and place it in the shortcut keys. So we had a +2 in here. I think we had a -2. So you could put all the modifiers in here ahead of time. And we had a -5, so I'm going to put that in there. So -5. Put that modifier there, and then we had a 5, a +5. So you could do that ahead of time and use those shortcuts below to make it a little bit easier for you. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and click the +7, which adds the modifier, and then just pick up this D20 and drop it in here. And that's an 18, so that beats the armor class. So again, I'm going to roll damage, so it's 1d6 +4. So what I can do is take this 4 here, and I'll just put that in there and drag that over to the modifier. So now what I can do is click the +4 and then take the d6 and drop it in here. So that's 9 points of damage. So that defeats the wolf. So he yelps. So I come in with my short blade and probably just connect with him and kind of jab at him right through his chest area. It's right through his lungs. So he yelps and there's like blood splurting out, and he rolls over and dies basically. So it says if you defeat the wolf, you go to entry 7. If the wolf defeats you, you go back to 17. So I'm going to go ahead and click 7. So it says you leap aside, avoiding the wolf's snarling jaws, and drive your sword deep into its flank. So it already narrates this for you. With a yowl, the wretched creature falls into the muck and goes still. You clean off your blade, then wander into the cave to make sure that this wolf was the only one. As your eyes adjust to the gloom, you find yourself inside a small cavern that was obviously the beast's home. It stinks of wet fur, and there are scraps of rotting meat and bone lying about, evident of its previous victims. Far more interesting, though, is something that you spot, and what you spot at the back of the cave. A crack in the far wall leads into darkness, and just above it, scratched into stone, is a symbol that looks like a treasure chest. As you draw closer, you realize the crack is actually the entrance to an underground tunnel lit by that might just be it's the underground tunnel. It might just be the hiding place of some forgotten treasure. So if you try to squeeze through the crack and explore deeper into the cave, you go to 18, or if you turn around, you can go back and collect your riches in town. So I think I'm going to go forward just for the sake of this. So putting aside your fear, you squeeze through the crack in the narrow passageway beyond, lit only by faint light from above. If the cobwebs and dust are any indication, no one has been down this way for a long time. Up ahead, the passageway widens to form a cave chamber before veering to the left. A curtain of moss grows on the right wall of the small cavern, fed by a trickle of water dripping from the cavern ceiling. Something about it looks odd, but you can't figure it out without succeeding at a perception check. So now it gets into the skill check. So your perception indicates how good you are at noticing things. To attempt a perception check on a roll on a d20, you add your perception bonus, which is +4. Once you have rolled, compare the total to the difficulty class, which in this case is 15. If your result is equal to or greater than the DC, you succeed. So let's do that. So I'm gonna give me the +4 bonus by clicking on the shortcut that I made, and that automatically adds the modifier. And then I'm gonna roll a d20. You have to beat 15. Wow, that sucked. So I rolled a 6. That didn't make it. So I'm kind of looking around. I don't notice anything. And what that would tell me is that, I'm not familiar with this place and maybe I'm a little scared still, that sort of thing. But nonetheless, we didn't make it. So if it says if you fail, you go to 21. So entry 21 says you look around but fail to spot anything of interest. With no other way to go, you head down the corridor that leads off to the left. You notice a faint breeze as you make your way down the tunnel. Now it says go to entry 10. The passageway winds through ancient rock, but it's clear that someone has made it wider with a pickaxe, although it looks like the work has been done many years ago. After squeezing hurriedly through a narrow crevice with a ceiling supported only by a rotting log, you find yourself in a small chamber. Roots grow down from above, breaking through the ceiling and letting in faint, dappling light here and there across the cavern. Opposite the entrance is another corridor, but before you can head down that way, you hear a terrible hissing sound from the passageway. So you hear the shh, and then it says, "Hey, Happy New Year, Bruno." It says, emerging from the darkness is a gigantic snake with terrifying fangs. So this would be a good time if you had an image to share it, but in this case, I don't see one, so I'm not going to worry about it. You are now in combat with a snake. Just as when fighting the wolf, you and the snake will take turns attacking one another until one side is defeated. But there are a few new things to pay closer attention to in this combat. First, the snake stats. So the snake has 15 and he has 8 hit points. So he's a little bit harder to hit, but he has less hit points. So I'm going to put that down here. The snake. So AC is 15, probably a dex bonus. And then HP is only 8. So that's basically how we're going to roll. And the snake's action. So he can move 20 feet. This is called a stride. It must use this action twice on its first turn to be next to you so that it can attack. So it's going to take both the stride actions and then the bite action. Once he reaches you, the snake tries to bite you with its fangs. Roll a d20 and add 8 to its first attack roll, and then add 3 to its second roll, and then subtract 2 from its third attack roll each time. If the result is equal to or greater, the snake bites you and deals 1d4 points of damage, and every time it bites you, you might be poisoned. So whenever the snake bites you, it might poison you. This happens to be part of the bite, so it doesn't use an action. But when you're hit by the snake's bite, you must make a saving throw to resist the effects of the venom. So saving throws are special rolls to resist things that try to harm or control your character. There are 3 kinds of saving throws. Reflex, for like dodging, that sort of thing. You have will checks, which are to resist spells, and you have fortitude, which is used for saving throws to fight off poisons and diseases. So there's three different ones. You must attempt a fortitude saving throw every time the snake bites you. So you roll a d20, you add your fortitude save bonus, which is 8. And if the result is equal to or greater than 16, which is the difficulty challenge of the poison or the difficulty class, you fight it off and nothing happens. If the result is 15 or lower, you take an additional d8 from the poison. On your turn, you can attack just like in the previous fight. Unfortunately, there's nothing to hide behind in this chamber, so you can't boost your armor class like you could in the wolf fight. So on our attack, we can use a short sword. So let's see what happens. So the snake gets first attack. So we're just going to roll. And like I said, he takes his first movement, his stride, and he has to use this action twice before on its first turn to make it so he can reach next to you. So he moves as quickly as he can, and this turn he gets one bite, because essentially he's used both other turn actions to move closer. So now he's going to take this bite, and we'll see if he strikes, if this thing strikes. So he moves closer and he strikes at me. So let's see. We get to add 8. So we add the modifier up here in the box and take the d20 and roll it and see if it beats our armor class, which is 18. Oh my God, he rolled a 20. Yeah, so there isn't anything in here that talks about a natural 20, but in lots of games, including Pathfinder, I'm sure there's some rules for it, but that would probably constitute double damage or sometimes an extra attack. It just depends on what the rules say, but I'm just going to count it as a straight hit, unfortunately, because the tutorial doesn't get that deep into the mechanics yet. So that's supposed to come later. So I'm just going to have to consider that a regular hit, and I'm going to roll a d4, and the actual fangs do 2 points of damage. So I'm going to do -2, and then let's see if the poison takes effect. So I'm going to roll fortitude, and I get an 8 for my bonus, and I need to roll over 16. So just taking the die and rolling it with the modifier, and yes, so the poison didn't affect me on this strike, thank God, and I'm safe for the time being, sort of. So now it's my turn. So I take my short blade and start hacking at this snake, being that it's being very vicious and aggressive towards me. I didn't even get a chance to see what kind of snake it is or anything. It just came up and started biting. So I get to add a 7 to my roll. And it says roll a d20, add 7 or +2 for your second attack, -3 for your third. Each time is equal to or greater than the AC. So I have to beat 15 in this case. So I'll just go ahead and roll with the modifier on there. And that was a 19, so that scores a hit. So I get to roll 1d6 +4. So I'm going to click on the little shortcut I made. There's my damage bonus, and I'm just going to roll a d6. Wow, so -10, so that defeats the snake. So I just took him out in one blow. So had that been, more advanced rules and, using the full breadth of the rule set, we'd probably be using, like I rolled a 1 and a 20 in this solo adventure, and that may have come out differently. However, we're kind of following the tutorial without getting too deep into the mechanics. I mean, my first reaction is, oh my God, that's double damage, or, some kind of bad thing happening or something. But in this case, we're just going to follow this. So now it says if you defeat the snake, you go to area 8. If you succumb to the poison, then you go to entry 17. So I'm going to go to entry 8. And it says, with a swish, your blade slices through the snake and it falls dead at your feet with a loud thud. Stepping around its body, you check the room for anything of value. You find a very old, tarnished silver coin wedged between 2 stones on the floor. It must have been here for ages, but it will buy you a night at the inn back in town when it's all over. So you can add 1 silver piece to your note. So I'll just add something here. So I'll say +1 SP, just so I remember. for my loot. And I'll put that here. I'll say loot. So I'll know to add that later. Leaving the dead serpent behind, you head toward the passageway opposite of the entrance. Unlike the caves that came before, this tunnel looks like it was carefully dug out of the earth and meticulously reinforced with wood and stone. After about 20 feet, the passageway forks, heading off to the right and the left. You can hear a faint sound of splashing water to the right, while a very cold breeze drifts out of the passageway to the left. Which way do you go? Anyone watching, which way should we go? Should we go to the left or to the right? So to the left is some watery sounds, like splashing water, and to the right is cold, kind of a cold breeze. That's a draft, basically. So if you guys have any preference, if not, I'm going to roll a 50-50. So I'll say 1 to 3, we go left, and 4 to 6, we go right. There we go. So we're going to the right. So the right is basically the water sound. So we'll go ahead and go to the right, which is entry 5. Okay, it says the burbling sound echoing from somewhere up ahead grows louder with every step until you can hear the sound of rushing water clearly. As you turn a corner, the source of the sound becomes apparent. The chamber up ahead is split in half by a stream that flows through the center of the room. The swift underground river enters the room from the right and flows out to the left. Across the way, you see a passageway that continues onward, and you can just make out a staircase going down. Discarded on the ground in front of you is an old torch, probably left here by a previous explorer. If you take the torch, write down torch on a scrap piece of paper. If your notes say pull the lever, you go to 16. Otherwise, go to 11. So I'm going to add the torch, which is, an old torch, but that's part of my loot. And I'm going to say 11 because I don't have anything that says pull the lever. Okay, the only way to get across the river is to swim through the dangerous water. Swimming to the other side of the room requires a skill check. To attempt a skill check, roll a d20 and add the bonus associated with the skill you're trying to use. If the result is equal to or greater than the DC of the task, you succeed. In this case, you can use athletics to swim across. To make it to the other side, you must succeed at least 2 athletic checks, which have a DC of 15. So you have a skill bonus of +7, and then the swim challenge rating is a DC, or in this case, they call it a difficulty class or difficulty challenge, so that's 15. These checks can be dangerous if you are in the water and fail too many athletics checks to swim. You get swept downstream. Since the river leads deep underground through long tunnels without air, you'll drown if you fail a total of 3 athletic checks before you succeed at 2 checks to get out of the water, or after you get out of the water, if you do. So if you fail 3, you go here. If you make it to the other side, you go to number 3. If you instead decide to head back and go the way you came, you go back to 15. So there's kind of a 3 choices here. So let's make those rolls. So we get +7, and we have to beat this 15. So again, I'll click on the modifier and drop this die in here and see what we get. So there's a 17. So there's 1 success. We only need 2 to get across. So again, +7, which I already had as a shortcut down here. And then I'll just roll the 20-sided again. Yep, 22. So we made 2 successes in a row. So we tread water. We just kind of get across. We drifted a little bit, but we were able to swim powerfully enough to get it to the other side and pull ourselves out of the water. So it says if you make it to the other side, you can make your way down the stairs, go to number 3. So we're going to go to number 3. So you travel down quite a distance before arriving in a large cavernous chamber. A hole in the ceiling above allows in a thin shaft of light that illuminates a pile of coins and at least a couple glittering jewels. Standing in the center of this pile is a wooden statue, crudely carved to look like a pirate. The statue holds a wooden saber pointing menacingly in your direction. So it's like a big, pretty good sized wooden statue. Drawing closer, you can tell that the statue has points and hinges on its arms and legs. But by the time you realize it, you have drawn too close, and the statue comes to life, so it animates. Swinging its saber back and forth, the menacing statue approaches you. As it draws near, you spot a strange-looking keyhole located in the middle of the statue's neck. If you have a skeleton key written on your scratch paper, go to number 19. If you don't have the skeleton key, you can draw your weapons and attack, so go to number 25. So that's where we're going to go. You are now in combat with the pirate statue. To start the encounter, you and the statue must start by rolling initiative to determine who acts first. This is a perception check that both of you attempt. The one who gets the higher results acts first in combat. As a reminder, your perception bonus in this case is +4. The pirate's perception bonus is +0. Roll both and see who gets to go first. If you go first, you have to spend one action to move next to the statue before making any attacks. The statue is much slower, so if it goes first, it must spend 2 actions to move before attacking. All right, so let's do this. So I'm going to move to get closer to engage it, and I get my second attack. Now, I need to know one thing. I'm kind of confused. So if this is not my first action, do I take the +2 and then the -3? Yeah, it just says that. Okay, so I will just do it that way. But being that it's, kind of a delayed attack, I think, and not planned, maybe I do need to just take the +2 instead of the +7. So this is where I'm learning the rule set, because I don't really know all the little nuances, but it doesn't say anything here, but I'll just go by the order of the attack and how many rounds. So the second round, I'm going to get the +2 modifier and add it. So I'll add the +2 modifier, I'll roll the dice, and I have to beat an 18. All right, so that was a 19. So its hit points is 20, like mine. So I'll say statue. And I'm going to do the 1d6 +4. So the +4 modifier, pick up the 6-sided, roll it, and it will add. So there's 5 points of damage. So I did -5 to the statue. -5 HP. There we go. So at least I got that. Now I'm going to do a second hit, but it's at a -3. So -3. Oops, that's +3. -3. And again, I have to beat 18. I almost made it, so it kind of moved out of the way, I guess. So now it's the turn of the statue's action. So he is going to roll a +9 on his first attack. Yikes. And he has a wooden saber. So we'll see how he does. So he has to beat my AC, which is 18. So we're very similarly matched. Nope, he missed. So we'll do the second one. Is he gets +4 for this attack. I'll roll again. Nope, he missed again. And his final attack is -1. So we'll do that. And again, we're going to roll and see if he makes it. Nope. So he tried 3 times. Like, he was kind of dancing back and forth. I have my short sword. I'm trying to, jab it in, and he's swinging this thing at me. So now it's my turn. Now, we didn't roll initiative last time, so I'm going to go ahead and roll. So I get a +4. So we'll see if I get to go first. So I have to beat his essentially. So I will put +4 modifier and roll a d20. And mine is a 14. He just rolls a straight 20. Let's see what he gets. He gets a 7. So I go first anyways. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and do the next attack roll. So +7 this time. And roll a d20, and I got to beat his armor class of 18. Oh yeah, that connects. So I'm going to roll a d6 with a +4 damage modifier. And voila, so there's 10. So he's down to 5 hit points. And I still got 2 more attacks. Maybe I'll take him out. So, but this next attack is a little bit weaker. So I get a +2 this time. So my second action, I roll a 20. So that definitely connects. Now again, there's no, critical hit, critical fails, or anything like that. So it's just a hit. But I do get to take the damage action. So there's +4 damage plus a d6. So -9. So he's defeated. The statue is down. I shattered it into pieces, or maybe I stuck and broke it or whatever. So if you defeat the statue, you go to number 6. So the pirate statue falls to the floor in a thunderous crash, breaking into several pieces. With the last guardian defeated, you are free to gather up the loot and make your way back to town. In total, there's 79 copper. So I'm going to put that in here. 79 copper pieces. 25 silver, so I'll add that to the other one I had. So now I have a total of 26 silver. And the next is 4 gold. So I got 4 gold and some coins. And then it says that the real treasure is 3 gems. So gems, which equal about 5 gold each. But the last one is a sparkling ruby. It can easily sell for 20 gold. So we got 3 at 5, and then 1 that can sell for 20. So one's a ruby, and the other ones are probably just, regular agates. So there we go. So one of these is +20 gold. So, you record this stuff on your sheet or on your notes. So next time you play, you have that. All right, so that makes this a very rewarding trip. So gathering up the last of your loot, you prepare to head back to Otari and claim the reward for killing the wolf. While you're at it, you might just spring for the nicest room at the end and make talk to the town blacksmith about getting a new suit of armor. But that is a tale for another adventure. Congratulations on defeating this solo adventure. Did you collect all the treasure? There is a total of 40 gold pieces worth of coins and treasure you can find during this event, plus a reward. Remember that 10 copper is equal to 1 silver, and 10 silver to 1 gold. You are now ready to build your own character. Go to the Hero's Handbook to begin your adventure. So the next time we do this, I'll build my own character. I'll probably model it after Valeros, or just keep using Valeros if you want to. One thing I could say about this might be a good way to onboard your players if they've never played Fantasy Grounds or role-playing games. So that's kind of what this one was for. So this is a really good, fun little jaunt that you can do yourself. And as you saw, I just took a few notes, just rolled some dice. There's no automation, nothing. So that really just kind of makes it very vague and really, really to the point. Now, when you start getting into the solo adventure, from the solo adventure to the actual boxed adventure inside of here, let's see. So in the reference manual, there is another adventure, and it's Menace under Otari. So you could technically take your newest player, run him through that solo to build up his confidence, and to give them kind of a rough overview of Fantasy Grounds. and then either use the same character sheet so he's already familiar with it, or have him build one, however you want to do it. I would just let him use Valeros the whole time and let all the other players build their characters if they're already familiar, and go from there. So what's nice is you can do this menace in under Otari, and then you could do the one-shot adventure, which is a trouble. I think it's another Otari adventure. And then you can work your way into the adventure path, the Absalon one. So you have a pretty good, steady group of material that you can use without having to build anything. And I'm thinking about going through this actually and automating this. So I would probably make the treasure parcels, the NPCs, the challenges, maybe a rough map that just has that, and use that as another way to show people how to use the rule set. Is that none of that's done? It was all meant to be narrative. But I think for myself and for newer people, especially if you want to teach them more about Fantasy Grounds, you can build these assets and not have to necessarily do all this stuff here. But I did like the idea of putting the shortcuts for the modifiers down here. That made it a lot easier once I realized that can happen. And then, of course, the notes that I used, I can just click on these, and that brings up the notes. That makes it a lot handier. So if I leave Fantasy Grounds and I come back, everything will be where I left it, which is nice. So if you go to Options and you click on this here where it says Desktop, restore Windows on start to on. When I come back, like let's say I had to go to dinner or something, when I actually exit Fantasy Grounds and I come back again, it's going to be right where I left it. So I'll just go to Load Campaign, go back to the Legacy Beginner box, and go from there. So that's the end of the solo tutorial. That could have went a few different ways, obviously, but it gives you a rough idea of solo play. It also gives you some maybe some incentive to get to know Fantasy Grounds a little better. Maybe you'll build those assets that I was talking about, like learn how to build or find out where the NPC records are, build the treasure parcels. Maybe make a brief map that would kind of just map out the dungeon area. You could do that to make things a little easier on yourself or to get more used to the platform. So this would be a really good starting point for a new GM, is to take this adventure, go through it a couple times by yourself, then get a new player and run him through it, and then maybe make the assets, the maps and stuff, just so you can kind of get an idea of how to use the software. So I think what I'm going to do is make the assets for this adventure and just have them on the side in case you want them, because there's quite a few entries here. So I'll just go through each entry and see what needs to be made, if anything, and then make a list and just go down that list and knock it out. And in doing so, you'll kind of get used to Fantasy Grounds if you're kind of been playing a little bit and you want to start making your own. Like I could see, you might add a couple images, you might add some parcels, which is your treasure. You might add some NPC stat blocks so you can use the combat tracker, that kind of thing. So it's kind of up to you what you want to do. But anyhow, folks, Happy New Year. And I hope 2025 brings us a better time for everyone in this world. And I also wanted to mention thanks for everyone who supported me when I was pretty much out of work for the last 3 years. I got a pretty decent job now. I'm actually going to be starting a night shift coming the 6th. So I got a couple more days, Thursday and Friday, of day shift training, and then I'll be on nights with my regular crew. So thanks, folks, and I'll see you around. And like I said, the next video I do, I'll probably build a character for the adventure and go from there. So take care, folks. Bye-bye. Happy New Year.